For many first-time homebuyers and families who have been waiting years to buy a home, news out of Washington suggests that the Trump administration is thinking about declaring a national housing emergency, something that could be a game-changer. Here's why. For years, not enough homes have been built to keep up with the growing population. Since the 2008 financial crisis, the U.S. has fallen behind by 4 million homes. At the same time, many current homeowners locked in very low mortgage rates before 2022. Because of that, they don't want to sell. This keeps the number of homes for sale very low, which drives prices up. Today, high mortgage rates, expensive home prices, rising insurance costs, and higher property taxes have made owning a home almost impossible for many families. That pressure is pushing more people into the rental market, which is also driving up rents. A July 2025 report from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition shows that in no state can a full-time minimum wage worker afford a two-bedroom apartment. Almost half of all renter households spend more than 30% of their income on rent. The affordability crisis is also fueling homelessness. The 2024 point-in-time count found over 770,000 people were homeless, including nearly 150,000 children, an 18% increase from 2023. With President Trump floating the possibility of declaring a national housing emergency, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggesting that the administration is studying potential emergency measures to decrease closing costs, standardize the local patchwork of building and zoning codes. Washington Examiner. Reproral Mike Flood, chairman of the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee, suggested that his panel was working on bipartisan legislation to make housing more affordable nationwide. And Housing and Urban Development, HUD Secretary Scott Turner telling Fox Business that discussions are ongoing. A national housing emergency may not only be just welcome news, it could be the lifeline renting and prospecting first-time homebuyers have been waiting for amid multiple challenges. A national housing emergency is a formal declaration by the President of the United States, signaling that the nation's housing crisis has reached a critical tipping point. This declaration is not made lightly. It's a recognition that the shortage of safe, affordable homes is so severe, it threatens the well-being of millions and the stability of the country itself. When such a crisis is declared, it means the situation demands immediate, large-scale action from the federal government. Families may be facing homelessness, rents may be skyrocketing, and communities may be struggling to keep up with demand for shelter and support. This isn't just theoretical. It happened after World War II, when millions of returning soldiers and their families found themselves without adequate housing. Cities were overcrowded, and temporary shelters became the norm for many. In response, President Truman declared a national housing emergency, unlocking special executive powers to address the crisis. The government prioritized building materials, offered incentives to developers, and coordinated efforts across agencies to speed up construction. They even went so far as to convert military barracks and surplus army buildings into homes for families, making use of every available resource to provide shelter. This direct federal intervention jump-started a massive wave of home construction, laying the groundwork for the suburban boom of the 1950s and changing the American landscape for generations. By elevating housing to a top national priority, the government was able to mobilize resources, cut through red tape, and tackle the crisis head-on with unprecedented speed and scale. The results were transformative. Entire neighborhoods were built, families found stability, and the housing landscape was forever changed by decisive federal action. Today, as we face rising home prices, growing homelessness, and a shortage of affordable housing, some argue that we need a similarly bold response to address the crisis. Could a new national emergency declaration be the catalyst for sweeping change in how we approach housing in America? Declaring a national housing emergency gives the president the authority to act swiftly and decisively in the face of urgent need. In moments of crisis, speed is everything, especially when millions of Americans are struggling to find a place to live. By declaring an emergency, the president can bypass the slow, often gridlocked legislative process that can take months or even years to produce results. This means no more waiting for endless debates or partisan standoffs in Congress while the crisis worsens. Instead, executive orders can immediately direct federal agencies to release critical resources, streamline complex regulations, and launch new programs on a national scale. This rapid response can make a real difference for families in need. The focus is on speed, cutting through layers of red tape and bureaucracy to address urgent housing needs before they spiral out of control. Unlike the 2008 financial crisis, which was addressed with massive bailouts and sweeping financial policy, today's housing crisis is rooted in a fundamental shortage of homes. There simply aren't enough places for people to live. Experts agree. What's needed now is a production-focused, almost wartime-level response, one that mobilizes resources and labor to build homes at an unprecedented pace. An emergency declaration would mark a major shift in strategy, prioritizing the construction and supply of new homes over temporary financial fixes or market interventions. Treasury officials have already hinted that this bold move could be coming soon, signaling a new era of federal involvement in solving the housing crisis. The ultimate goal is clear: empower the federal government to take decisive, meaningful action that helps first-time buyers and families finally achieve the dream of homeownership. It's about creating real momentum and hope, where for too long, there's been only gridlock and frustration. One bold solution is unlocking federal land for new home construction. The U.S. government owns vast tracts of land, especially in the West. Auctioning off just a fraction could support millions of new homes, directly addressing the supply shortage. More land means more development, which can lower prices and ease competition. Builders could pass savings from cheaper land to buyers, creating new communities of affordable homes. But not all federal land is suitable. Much is remote and lacks infrastructure. The key is targeting land near existing cities, making new homes truly viable for first-time buyers. Used wisely, this policy could be a game-changer. Local zoning laws often block affordable housing by restricting what can be built. A national emergency could pressure cities to reform, tying federal funding to more flexible zoning. This would allow for duplexes, triplexes, and other missing middle housing in high-demand areas. Increasing density means more homes where people want to live. Closing costs are another barrier, often thousands extra on top of a down payment. Emergency powers could subsidize or cap these fees, making homeownership more attainable. Lowering upfront costs directly helps renters become owners. These changes could open doors for many first-time buyers. High mortgage rates and steep down payments are huge hurdles for buyers. While the president can't force the Fed to lower rates, an emergency could increase pressure for action. More directly, federal funds could provide down payment assistance, grants or low-interest loans to help buyers cross the finish line. For many, this support is the difference between buying and waiting another year. Real estate experts say down payment help could quickly bring new buyers into the market. It's not a handout, it's a bridge for responsible renters ready to own. This approach empowers families to build equity and wealth. Immediate relief for buyers, while long-term supply solutions take root. A national housing emergency might sound extreme to some homeowners who does not understand how affordability crises affect the entire economy. But for struggling renters and buyers, it's urgent. A national housing emergency would officially recognize housing affordability as a top national crisis. It would break years of inaction, creating momentum for real reform. Measures like releasing federal land, zoning reform, and down payment assistance could finally tip the scales for first-time buyers. Imagine more affordable homes, help with closing costs, and new options in your community. Change won't happen overnight, but an emergency declaration is a powerful catalyst. It signals the government is ready to act, and that the status quo is no longer acceptable. For future buyers, this could mean a shift from an impossible market to one with real opportunity. The dream of homeownership could move from impossible to achievable once again. Share and subscribe to HomeSmart Academy for clear explainers on breaking news and how it impacts your wallet.